Greetings, everyone, and welcome once more to the Dracovin Empire. Are you ready to dive back into the Sixth World? Yes, we're heading back into the future. Alternate future. Shadowrun. A cyberpunk world with fantasy, magic, and all kinds of interesting things. We're going to be heading to Peru today. The country's history is a little muddled when it comes to the Sixth World, but current view is incredibly interesting. So we're ready to dive back into Shadowrun, back to the Sixth World. Take my hand. I'm your host and guide, Dracovin. I can lead us there through a dimensional time vortex that'll take us through our world and this one close to our own into the distant future of the 2070s, 2080s. Please do remember to give me a little bit of tip before we go with subscribing over on the YouTube side of things and letting me know, would you use Peru in any of your adventures in Shadowrun in the future? Portal's open. Take my hand. Let's get going. Boom! Sixth World. Are you ready to rock and roll? Well, if we're going to be learning about Peru, there's some good books to talk about. Now, the one I'm going to mainly recommend is, of course, the Sixth World Almanac. That's my main source to talk about. But I did do a little bit of looking into, and you can also look into, ghost cartels, because, well, the ghost cartel is pretty big here. Along with the Year of the Comet, and, of course, down there, Target Awakened Lands. So, these are all pretty big books that will give you a bit of information on what's going on. We will talk about another book that doesn't exist today, but also kind of does exist. We'll get to it when I show off stuff on it, when we reach it. Just know, there's a little bit more to talk about when it comes to books. Anyway, Peru! What do we know about Peru? Well, we know that it is a decentralized anarchist communism. That's a mouthful to describe what the kind of government as the nation is. Its capital is technically Lima, but it's also not, which you'll also understand, because you don't really have leaders in Peru. Also, there's about 30 million people there, of which about 60% is human, along with a smattering of various others. There is about a third of the people that are sinless, with that same third of people being below the poverty line, and about half the people are corporate affiliated. High school education is the main one you get, and Spanish is the main language, with Quechua, Aymara, some Japanese, and English also being major languages. And anybody that's religious tends to be Roman Catholic or Protestant, with a little bit of more native religions being in there. The new yen is the main currency. Hey, thanks Japan, thanks being the global network of money we can use. That's our basic overview look of Peru. Now we talk about Peru, and we're taking a look at South America here and how it is. We can kind of talk about its history, but its history isn't stuff that we have a huge amount of information on. We basically know that there are two major influences that have been keeping control of Peru since the kind of advent of the Sixth World, and that is Japan and the ghost cartels. We're going to talk about them in the modern version of Peru, but just know these two groups have been competing for control of this entire region, and it got worse after the Year of the Comet. We'll talk about why here in a second, but I'll tell you why in a major way. Halcyon. You know the entire thing when Halley's Comet showed up and Halcyon veins were discovered everywhere? Turns out one was in Peru in an ancient emerald mine that was done by the Incan Empire. Yeah, an Incan emerald mine all of a sudden had magic metal in it. Oh yeah. Majorly just messed up the country even more than it had already been through with these two major units. Along with the Shining Path, their basically communist party, being a big part of this entire thing, of this three-way competition we're going to be talking about here. But again, details of the history of what's been going on here, kind of a little muddled up until the Comet. But we just know that these three have had major influence on here regardless. Japan and the Japan Corps just became even more interested after the Halcyon. Same with, the ghost cartels. Everybody wants it. It's rare, super magic metal. There's good reasons for it. I'll have a new video on Halcyon special metals and stuff at some point in time. Cough, 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 cough. Background stuff there. Let's take a look at country itself and its cities. Just to give you an idea about things before we dive into the people and the people in charge and things like that. So, right now, there are a couple of major regions and cities here. When we're talking about natural areas, and Quitos is a natural area here. You can see it on my map over here. That's one of the 4 major regions of this area here. Basically, the Andes Mountains splits this area into a temperate coast, dry area mountain plateau area, and deep jungle. And Quitos is the jungle region. And Quitos is also where the resurgence of the people of Incan descent have had their major power gaining. Basically, they've had a deal with the Shining Path and the Amazonia, and a lot of the groups there to kind of maintain a kind of power basis and grow in this ancestral land. The communists, the Shining Path, keep to the other 2 regions and basically keep these people of Incan descent to themselves in a lot of ways. And they've been kind of growing in their own jungle kingdom that, because they've been kind of almost left alone, they're willing to still be part of Peru. It's that sort of thing of like, the Shining Path, the communists, are basically like, hey, you guys just do your own thing over there. You're still part of us. You still help support us. You do things like that. But you can do your own thing over there to a degree. And they're like, okay. So, yeah. It's an interesting thing here, too. And there's a lot of magic and natural defense in the jungle area that make it no one really wants to go to there. Because also, for Amazonia, which would like to just take over the place, they've had trouble kind of getting in this place. And they don't even know where the Amuras, who are the basically people that took control of this ancestral area, are doing there. They're basically doing their own thing, and they're like, we don't want to be part of you. We kind of are okay with being part of you. We're doing our own thing. The other thing we do have to mention is the Nazca lines, as they were always kind of magical with the reassertion of magic. But again, after basically a big earthquake in 62, the ley lines that were beneath the Nazca lines have opened up even more. And yeah, the Shining Path is trying to control that, but so yeah. So the 3 main locations we can talk about are Lima, Arequipa, who's down the south there, and Machu Picchu. I said Picchu for a second there, and that was terribly wrong. Lima is technically the capital. It's technically the 2nd largest city in South America with its growth and development. In more stable times, it was. It was considered a world-class city and credible network of cities across the world. It's still a powerhouse, even though it doesn't have the other thing, even though it's got political unrest. Basically, its seaport is still one of the largest seaports in all of South America, and almost 48% of all sea commerce and fishing through South America goes through Lima. So that's how important this city is. The Japanacorps control it. Basically, Japan had huge control of it when Japan was in there. Nowadays, the Japanacorps still have huge influence there. And, basically, the Shining Path can't kick them out. Because also then we have Japanese expats, Yakuza that lay low in South America there, Imperial Marines that were deserters, some Imperial Marines that have retired, that basically are driving what the cultural tone of Lima is. They bring in their tastes, their art, their food, their lifestyles, and basically the native Peruvian people that are under them don't really like it. They are controlling it. The Shining Path try to undermine them and get the help of the locals, but it's a huge war of intrigue and espionage that's going down in Lima constantly between this huge Japanese influence that's there because of the Japanacorps and all those people that basically, in all the time that Japan was basically in control there, were there. We'll talk about the withdrawal in a minute. And now they're there. So, the white city of Arequipa, to the south, maybe about 766 kilometers, is in the shadow of one of the many volcanoes. There was a big eruption around the earthquake of 62 that basically did a lot of damage to the city. The Shining Path moved in, got some backing by Amazonia, basically because Amazonia wants to kind of take over Peru, cough, 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 and basically they rebuilt the city into a shining example of the Path's might. Again, it's the thing that there's a decentralized communist party that's trying their best to kind of take over and unite the nation into a communist nation. There is the natural Incan people, native Incan people that are doing their own thing. and then there's the Japanese influence, and then we haven't even talked about the ghost cartels. All these people vying for power in Peru makes it a mess. But this is supposed to be their shining example of their greatness, their gleaming white city. A point of pride, and also bitterness for other parts of Peru, because they look at the value of that city, of the shining path, oh, look at its beauty, but also, because it had a big cartel stronghold beforehand, look at all the wealth of the cartel robbed blind. Because again, they rebuilt the city, it had a lot of the infrastructure already in place. Keep that in mind. A lot of that stuff was already there. Now we do have to talk about Machu Picchu. Why do we have to talk about Machu Picchu? It's an ancient city of the Incas. It's ruins. Because people are moving in there. Basically, it was a tourist place, a place for historians, a place of medication, maybe to reflect and practice forms of Incan magic that came back. Then the earthquake of 62, and something happened there. And now, people have been returning to the Machu Picchu. Small waves of immigration, setting up small villages, rebuilding some of the old places that are part of it. Something is woken up. Whether a dragon, an ancient god, something else, some kind of power, but something is drawing the people of this region back to the city and rebuilding the city. What will this mean in the future? We don't know. But Machu Picchu is returning, and it's an interesting fact. And what will this mean to everybody else that's competing for power in this place? Heck if I know. The mess of Peru continues. So here's a book that doesn't exist. Shadows of Latin America. This was a book that was going to be published, but this was right around the time that we lost the original controllers, the TSR of Shadowrun, and ended up in Catalyst. And the transition meant this book was never published. It was going to be published. It was in the works. You can find non-official information from this book. Again, the closest thing we have to official information post this book is the 4th edition book. As I said, I use the 6th World Almanac, which gives us information on a number of countries in South America, but not all of them. This would have given you an idea of all of them. And this was written on the direction of what was going on with writing for Shadowrun at the time. But again, it's technically non-canon. But if you want to use stuff from this material, you could find it. I just wanted to shout it out here at this point in time in the video because, again, it's an interesting thing that it is out there. You can find the old drafts of it. They've been put up online, and you can see what people were going to write about these countries. Again, some of them, like Amazonia, Argentina, and Peru, we got in the 6th World Almanac. So we got some of the countries at very least. So, what's our influence here? We had Japan here, the Imperial Marines that were in Peru, and basically making sure to help maintain, using Lima, their movements in South America. With the Japanicorps that were in the regions, basically taking all the materials they wanted. And yeah, with our Halcom mines, they had more interest, but then a lot of crap happened back in Japan, so they mostly withdrew. This was left them basically without really a government. They basically, what little government had existed was under Japanicorps, or maybe the Ghost Cartels, who were also in conflict because they were searching Inca ruins for like other little things, maybe more ore, stuff like that. It was a mess between these two for a while until one basically is withdrawn, leaving behind a vestige of that in places like Lima. So then we have the Shining Path, which is a resistance movement in a lot of ways that were against, now that political party resistance movement that were against Japan and the Ghost Cartels. And now that 10 years before 4th edition, Japan withdrew, well, hey, corps are on their own. They're still there. They still want to, like, steal everything to the land, the old, that verbiage of raping the land of its natural resources, that they wanted to continue doing, getting over Halcom. They don't like them doing that. Get rid of them. But then, of course, you have the Ghost Cartels, who have been there, who are big organized crime, are successors to the cartels, who have been using Peru in a lot of ways. With this giant major port here in Lima, they've basically been using it as a major smuggling port for bringing massive amount of material through Peru to the continent in Amazonia. So yeah. The big earthquake in 62 has changed things, though. That's the problem. Basically, the Shining Path has been trying to basically organize regional governments in loose national organization. They have decentralized power, which is great for communism and their communist ideals, but they're very slow to act and unable to make direct conflict with the ghost cartels, especially when they need to. So that's the problem with the Shining Path right now. They have all these like little places where, like in villages and small cities and stuff like that, they've established these communist governments. And they are technically all united, but they also don't have a central government. They don't have people in charge. They're all these little local places. And so that's why you have Japan still continuing control of Lima. You still have the Iquitos in their own region there. You still have the Ghost Cartel influencing everywhere. And now magic is back in full front with the awakening of a lot of power because of the big 62 earthquake. And Shining Path is incredibly fearful. This will lead people like Japan and the megacorps from wanting to come back into their nation and steal more natural resources. Basically continue to tear up the land and do what they were doing. You know, oh, mine, I'll take it all. And the thing is, they've been trying to keep a tight lip on a lot of this magical stuff, and it just makes it leak out even more. Holding it so tight, it leaks out more. So it's just a mess with the people in charge. And it's unfortunate that the people of the nation are suffering under this. And the thing is, the nation is even less united than it was. There were pretty much 23 regions within Peru in the old days. But those borders have been basically being lost more and more, especially due to corporate conflicts and a lot of other conflicts, a lot of decentralization. So a lot of the regions in here, you really only have one major region that exists that's pretty well secured, and that's goddamn Lima, because it's the only place that has a united government behind it. Everywhere else, it's a lot of fun for yourself, and the people of this nation just have to deal with that, and deal with these people in charge of them. It doesn't mean you can't have a decent life in Peru. Certainly speaking, you can just live there. But there's these heavily influence of these people, and it makes it a difference. And you still have the basic cultural mixing of it, of now the huge Japanese influence, the Spanish influence from everything that goes, and the Latin influence, and of course the native influence from a lot of Incan influence. Still mixing together, even more so. So we had two of these beforehand in traditional Peru as we know it. Now we have these three mixing together in a whole new and kind of interesting culture. That's kind of a mess too. That's why, 9% of the people in the country speak Japanese now. A lot of the prominent members of high society, politicians, and judges, you know who they work for? The cartel. They have a visible presence influencing and infiltrating what little government was there until the Shining Path came in. Well, until it was Japan versus the cartel, and now versus the Shining Path. And it's a mess. And the Ghost Cartel still is in a lot of these government places that are government. So Peru is wild, it's dangerous, it's an awakened jungle in a lot of places. It is a place of basically in cities. The only real power is the Yakuza, which talks about organized crime. Because in a lot of the major cities, it's the Yakuza who have a big influence. They smuggle goods into a lot of Peru and Amazonia, just as the ghost cartels have their influence and their, thing in this. So then we have now, on the ghost cartel, are acting as legitimate people and parts of the government in some ways, but they're also working as a criminal organization and competing against the Yakuza and competing against the Japanese and competing against the Shining Path, which adds another layer of the mess that is Peru. There's so much lack security in many parts of the country. Smuggling in Peru is huge. Narcotics, illicit goods, secrets are all major things being smuggled through the nation. And even then, on top of that, you have the huge corporate influence, especially from Japanicorps. Shiwase and Yamatetsu have huge influence within the economy of the nation, especially in the big cities. So, yes, megacorps have huge things, especially Japanicorps. And again, it's layer upon layer of the mess that is Peru, that it's somehow maintaining itself as a country. In a lot of other places in the world, Peru would have broken apart from being an actual country. But somehow, they've been managed to glue themselves together enough to keep it going over all of this. And that's an interesting fact about Peru and the Shadowrun world. It is this glued together mess of, things that are going on. And the fact is, honestly, the people just want to be the people. A lot of the people here, a lot of the people have that blood of the Incans, have that blood of Peru. And I'm sure your average member of Peru doesn't mind they're Peruvians, is probably proud they're Peruvians. But you have everyone at the top and everything that's trying to control the region being a mess. On the ground level, people just live their lives. They deal with the harshness, the dangers here, the problems, the wildness of the land itself, and just live. That's your average citizen. Granted, again, in the big cities, you have to deal with the corporations, especially the Japanicorps if you're in Lima or some of the other places. You have to deal with the influence of Japan, or maybe the influence of the ghost cartels, as they've put themselves in there. Or maybe the influence of now the Shining Path. And the Shining Path are probably the least terrible of these groups. Because again, they're a Maoist guerrilla insurgency that's become basically a major government political party to a degree. And they're trying their best to fix up the country and remove influence of these basically outsiders in a lot of ways, the criminals of the cartels or the influence of the Japanicorps. And they're not doing a great job about it because they're not great at organizing anything bigger than local. It's a mess. It's a dirty mess. You got criminals. You got governments. You got everyone who has their hand in Peru. And Orichalcum and magic has just made it worse. Things were calming down. Halley's Comet showed up. An earthquake happened. And that fan has had so much more shit hit it since then. So, it's an unfortunate thing about Peru that I do not feel like any time in the future they are going to stabilize. It will take a long time. Certainly speaking, with Japan kind of reaching itself back into itself, kind of drawing its empire in order to fix up its own problems, it does mean we're not going to get as many heavy influence. Lima will probably continue to have that influence. And the Japanicorps aren't going to go away. Megacorps don't leave. But I do feel like, at very least, the Shining Path will probably be able to compete with them to a degree. Keep them in check. Not well, but will. Ghost cartels? I don't know. Will Peru stabilize? Will it get a central government? I don't know. Certainly speaking, you had two competing groups that were trying to be there. A third one now. There just isn't a centralized government enough for something to make sense. And it just depends on where you are, at any time, who's in charge. If there is anybody in charge. It might just be live your life and deal with the crap that's going on. A fascinating country where it does go to show you the strength of these people here. They've put up with a lot of crap, and they still are doing it now. They got a lot of strength in the Peruvian people in the shop. Impressive, sir. But I hope you enjoyed that today. Once again, diving into just Shadowrun to talk about another nation, a very interesting one. If you want to see more of my stuff, you can go check me out over live, over on the YouTube side of things, or over on Twitch side of things, or over on YouTube where all the tabletop stuff gets recorded and uploaded over there. I do other stuff over on Twitch, but if you just want to see the tabletop stuff, you can always go check it out on the YouTube stuff. If you can't join me live either, my social media has schedules for that. Big things that I do want to shout out, though, are any of my live plays. All the old ones are archived over on YouTube. My current one is Fall of Advancewell, Wednesdays at 8. A Pathfinder 2nd Edition game. I also have Discussing Tabletop, Saturdays at 6, which is a great way to learn about news of the week in the tabletop world. That's an interesting discussion. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Again, just make sure to check out my social media. make sure to give a little bit of subscription over to YouTube or follow over on Twitch. And until the next time, we dive into Shadowrun once again, or any other tabletop role. I bid you all out there adieu and welcome. Farewell.